Alright guys, I want to make a quick video showing what this drill press currently looks like. About to start taking it apart, and I just want to get it on video, what it looks like prior to it being restored. I'd never done a drill press before, and let's take a look. I got the belt I needed, so I take this off here. I'll show you what it looks like running. And I got a nice belt, and I put a light bulb in it, and this is what it looks like. I got the chuck key. I picked up a new chuck key there, as you can see on the table, and it looks like it's running pretty good. It's got a little bit of a run out, I guess they would call it. I think it might be adjustable. I drilled through some wood, and it worked pretty well. I drilled through some metal. It didn't bog down for a second. Got it on a medium setting there. The motor is running nice and smooth. I'm going to take it all apart, lube it up, and paint it. And I think I'll probably paint it, even though it looks like it could probably be compounded out instead of the original color. More to come on that. Seems like I freed some of this up. The chuck's kind of freed up. I started putting a lot of oil around the base there, so that'll start to soak in, and hopefully it'll disassemble, and I'll try to take you through this process little by little. So I'm going to start ripping it down. Okay, this is what it looks like all taking apart, down to every nook and cranny basically out of this. Got all my parts in here soaking in a little WD-40 mixture. I think there's some transmission fluid in there. I'm starting to really clean up the levers here and the arms. I got some stuff here that cleaned up way better than I ever could have expected. I actually thought these bars were painted. I thought this little tension adapter, this holds the tension rod, I thought this was actually painted as well. Look how that cleaned up. And then I'm going to have to make a decision on some of these parts. So like this was originally like a blackish finish to it. And look how nice that one polished up. So I'm probably going to polish that up. This bracket I did the same thing on, but I think I'm probably going to paint that. I'm still cleaning up a bunch of stuff there. I'll show you the motor in a minute. I did paint a couple of brackets just to kind of get a feel for the paint and the color. I think I'm going to go with that. We'll see. It's kind of matches the original. It's more metallic. The motor, I'm going to have to get into that here in a little bit. I did pull the brushes out there. And the way they ran this is it just had a wire with a plug on it, a cord that plugged into the main adapter. I think what I'm going to do is hardwire it into here, so when I put the switch on, it'll kick it on, and then I'll have this as an auxiliary electrical outlet, which the electric is just so simple to this thing. It's one piece. It's got a cord on one end, and all the electric comes into this, and it sits on the top of the drill press. So I'm going to get in there, clean all that up, and look at this chuck. Did that come out nice or what? It is smooth as butter. Had to clean it up with a solution to soak it with transmission fluid and acetone. It was rusted in there, and now it is like silk. Cleaned all that up with the Dremel tool. Same thing with the quill. Had to get in there with the Dremel tool. That grease is just, that's old, just gets caked in there. Knocked the bearings out. Gonna put a couple new bearings in it. I was surprised that these bearings were actually made in Japan, which I know Japan makes nice bearings, but I figured the age of this drill press, it was using USA made bearings. But these are Hoover, and they no longer make them anymore. So I'm gonna have to find a comparable one, and I started looking, and it's a little bit of an odd size, so it's gonna set me back a couple of bucks. So let's keep moving. My angle grinder got a workout in this project. I used a handful of flap discs and went through a lot of them. Mostly started with the coarse grits, 36, worked my way up to like a 60 grit, 120 grit. Then used the new fiber wheel that I had, and I used mainly the fiber wheel on the stainless steel pole, and it just left it with a nice luster and a nice finish that I couldn't get with just the 120 grit. So it came out great. So here's the deck
that raises up and down. I have it lower than it'll normally be because I'm in the process of trying to clean up this hole here. I bet you the drill bit just kind of missed a little bit here and there over the years, and it really made that hole just not a nice clean hole. So my goal is to use this step bit, which I've never used before. I just picked it up from Harbor Freight. It's the 2-pack Warrior brand. It's $20. I used a 20% off coupon, so $16 plus tax. I'm hoping to kind of clean that out, almost ream that hole and make it look nice and clean. I'll probably spray it with a little bit of this cutting oil first to make it go a little smoother. But overall, I'm really happy with the way this came out, this platform here. I used a 36 grit on my flap disc sander when it was off. And then I went to 60 grit and then the 120 grit. And then eventually I used the fiber wheel that goes on the sander. So that seemed to take a nice polish on it. And then what I did was I compounded it out and I put a couple of coats of wax on it. Where there was a couple of deep divots that I just couldn't get below, I put a little JB weld in there. Unfortunately, it just doesn't match that well. But overall, I'm really happy with the way it came out. Let's just see if we could clean this hole up. Okay, so I think it came out a little bit better. It's not as great as I would have liked it to have been. I would have liked to make the hole a little bit bigger and taken out a little bit of that miss drill at some point. But overall, it cleaned up a lot of the burrs, and it's a slight improvement, and overall not too bad. I just hit it with a little wax in there so it won't rust up now that I just drilled it out. But not bad. Let's keep moving along. Alright guys, I'm getting really anxious to finish this up here. I don't know if you noticed in that last video I made about a week ago, I just sounded really down and out, and that's because I've been recovering from COVID, and I was knocked out for 2 weeks, and then that video I made was probably the 3rd week, and I was starting to do a little bit of light work that 3rd week, but now I'm 4 weeks after it, and I'm feeling way better, and I'm excited to put this back together. So with that, I want to show you what the quill and the bearings look like. These bearings are just a little bit odd size, and if you could see here, they measure about 16 millimeters on the diameter roughly, and that's just a rare size. Most of them this size are 15 diameter. Like I showed you before, you can't get this Hoover brand anymore. I don't know if they were bought out by somebody else, and I really wanted to get some quality bearings for this, but they were really expensive. To buy a Japanese-made bearing, because there's really nothing made in the USA, at least that I could find, they were ranging between $18 to $23 a bearing, and I needed 2 of them. It's more than I paid for the whole drill press at that price. So searching around on eBay, I was able to find these Nachi that are the right size. I got 2 of them for $22 with shipping. So I thought that was a really good deal. And I installed them in here, as you can see. And then you can't really see them here because it's got that little protective plate over it, but they are as smooth as butter. And I'm hoping, and I don't know a lot about what causes the run out or not. I'm sure the way the chuck sits on here as well causes someone to run out, but it had a tiny little bit of run out, and I'm hoping that these bearings, the newer ones, since they're so nice and tight and not worn out, that will be corrected once I install it. It wasn't like it was unusable type of run out, but it did have a little bit of a run out. And these were making just a little, one of them was in pretty good shape and the other one was definitely worn. And as you can see here, it's all put back together and it's ready to go back up into the drill press. So I'll do that here next. So I'm going to put the quill into the drill press, but before I do, I just want to show you the top pulley here. It's the only bearing that I did not change in this because I just couldn't find one for a reasonable price that was well made. I'd rather keep this one in there. It's not making any noise. It's nice and tight still. It doesn't feel worn out. If I could have found another one of those on line for 10-15 bucks, I probably would have bought one, but this one seems good enough. I'd rather keep that than get a Japanese one, or I'll spend $25 for one bearing. So the way this goes in is the quill. You just got to put that towards the back because the teeth are going to engage with the handle that's going to lower it up and down. I got the quill lock in here, but that's going to be open right now, and you just kind of jiggle it and just spin that until it engages, and then lock. They say to install the next piece, which is going to go in here, which is the handle. You need to have this at the highest position. So that's what that looks like up in there right now, and let's see what it's going to take to get the handle on. Okay, so this is what the handle looks like. I cleaned it up really nice. This here holds a spring in. I did knock this out at some point with a punch, had the spring completely out. But the way it works is that this is going to go into this hole here, and then there's actually a pin on this side of the unit that this tab has got to get onto. So I am going to have to put it in, stretch out this by using probably a long nose pliers from either underneath the unit or from on top of the unit to get it onto that pin. Then once it's on that pin, I'm going to pull it out, wind it up, and then that'll hold the tension for the quill and have it go up and down. This is probably, I'm thinking, going to be one of the trickiest things to do. I'm going to have to really climb up on top of it and under it and use some extra long pliers. I might even need some help from my wife maybe to just kind of hold it while I'm pulling out the spring. But we'll see how it goes. I'm going to do that now, and hopefully it works. I've been wanting to do this for a while because I knew this would probably be really tricky. But I wanted to make sure I did capture some of these things on video, and being sick and whatnot, it's just kind of been a weird process to get this thing done. But I'm finally moving. Okay guys, it wasn't as hard as I thought it might be. I was able to use this brake tool that had a little bit of a slot in it where I could get it on that round hook, work it over, and get it on top of the pin, and it just wouldn't go down all the way. So then I was able to take my long reach Craftsman pliers, come from the top of the unit, grab it, and just grab that loop and drop it over the pin. And now the handle is in place, and it's locked in place right now because I have the quill lock on, but that's what holds this in. As you can see here, right now it has no tension on it. So I was able to find from the manual a little bit about how to get some pressure on that and do that. So I'm going to do that here in a second, but I just wanted to thank the gentleman, I don't have his name in front of me, that gave me some information about this on my video I made where I just purchased this, and I said, hey, has anybody got any info on this? And because of him, I was able to find the manual for this, because it's not really a common Craftsman drill press. This one is either a 68 or a 69 model, and it's a mishmash of parts, basically, from what he tells me. From previous year models and then later year models, and it was made by a big company named Emerson Electric, and they were famous, I guess, for one of the first companies in the United States to make fans when electric first came out. Just a really cool. I read a little bit up on the company, Wikipedia. It was really, for I don't know, 60 years it was run by like 2 or 3 CEOs, which is kind of rare. So it's got a rich history, and it's a little bit about it. Otherwise, I would have never been able to find any information around this, although they do all pretty much work the same way. So the key is to keep this quill locked when you disengage it, so this thing will just drop down. And just to be safe, I put the tip all the way up just in case I did make that mistake. And I don't know if it would protect it. I guess I could have brought the base up just in case, but I think I'll remember to keep it locked. So what you want to do is pull this out. So if I didn't have that quill lock in there, this thing would just drop right out. You turn it counterclockwise, and just when you think you got it, it's like a trial and error. When you think you got enough tension on it, you could unlock the quill and see how it goes. Now, one thing I did not show is I did lube everything prior to doing this. I dropped the quill out and the spindle, and I used this Super Lube synthetic, and it's kind of a nice lightweight, and that's what I put on all the gears. I think that's pretty good, honestly. I mean, the quill's completely unlocked. Maybe I'll make it one more rotation, give it a little bit more tension on there, and we'll see how that goes. Now, I do have a brand new bumper guard on here. I was able to find that online on eBay. I think it was $2 and it came with some other parts. That seems pretty good. I mean, I guess I could always undo it if I don't like it, but that's basically the concept behind it, and I'll play with it and adjust it. So I got the motor mounted. I mounted it nice and level. It's very important to do so, so it runs nice and true and the belt will be nice and smooth. But how about that motor, huh? This is a 1935 General Electric. Let me take you around here and look at that, huh? That is a 1935. I didn't rebuild the motor, but I did take it apart, blow it all out with the air compressor. All the hardware is original. I was able to take it out, sand it, polish it, waxed it, and put it back on. So I was able to mount that nice and level. Now I am going to wire it, and the wires are going to run from the bottom of the motor, and I think I'm going to run it to under the unit and wire it up into the wiring. I don't know if it's we want to call it a wiring harness or whatnot, which I'll show you in a minute. Originally, though, the wire just ran to the top of the unit where it has an extra outlet, and they plugged it in. Now, when I say originally, that's the way I got it. That's not the way I believe it came from the factory. These are the brushes for the motor. Put a new cord on it. I put new wires all the way, well, not wires, but I stripped the wires off. They were the original coating to the wires, I should say. And what I did was I put shrink wrap all on it. And then what I did to secure it within here is I put extra shrink wrap on each side of this, kind of made my own little grommet. So that way it'll stay nice and snug in there. So let me show you how it's going to be wired. So this is what I'm talking about with the wiring. So here's the wire coming out of the motor, the new wire. I think what I'm gonna do is there's a bracket here. I'll loop it through there, and then I'll figure out how much slack I need, cut it off, go up into here, and then what that's gonna do is go into what I was calling that wiring harness, and I'll run those wires into there. So that way when I put this switch on, it'll turn the whole unit on, the light on. It's a pretty simple design. It came out pretty good though. I had to polish that out. It was in pretty bad shape. The switch isn't the greatest, but it'll work for now. It's not the most crisp. I cleaned it all out. There was a ton of sawdust and whatnot in there, and it works better. If I need to replace it at some point, it is easier enough to do, but I like the look of the original design. So now I'm going to get to wiring. Okay, so here's the finished product of the wiring. Like I said, I put the bracket on, looped it through, and then it runs right next to the main electrical cord coming out of the unit. It's got a little clip on it so it doesn't pull if you pull the cord. So it's all wired up. Let me finish the little details on painting and putting the cover on, and we're ready to go. It is done. It is as good as it is gonna get. Obviously I painted the body and the motor early on in the process, but the cover I kind of waited to the end. And I finally got around to doing it, sprayed it with a couple of coats of paint. It was a little beat up and bent up. It's just one of those things that probably, really don't need, obviously. And I don't even know if I had to use it a lot that I would use it a lot. Because getting the belts from pulley to pulley, it's a little bit of a pain in the neck. But I'll show you a couple little things I did to make it a little easier and work better. But painted the raised lettering. That went pretty well. It was pretty easy. Just used a little Q-tip, and I saved the old dose cups from medicine, and that's what I used to spray a little paint in out of my spray paint cans. Use a little Q-tip or a paintbrush, and then I will basically just throw it out when done. But how does that look, huh? Came out real nice. I'll run it for you here in a minute. I'm going to show you a little bit more about the cover here and what I did. So let me get you in there. So the cover is a pain in the neck. I put some new hardware in there. I don't know if you could see. It's kind of hard to see, but I actually made my own spacer there.
with an old, larger size nut, shrink wrapped it, and I try to make it so it would have friction. So that way when you lift this up, it'll kind of stay in place. But it's just really not a great design. There's a lot of weight on the bracket here. You can see it got a little scratched up there. I might have to put a little something there, but it's just not a great design. It's easier to probably use this thing if you were using it all the time without the cover on. It rattles. You know, I noticed I have to reposition the cover depending on the pulley that I'm using. Let me kick it on here and you can hear it sound smooth, huh? Let me show you the light bulb I put in there. That is a 75 watt. Let me shut it off, probably see it better. It looks like it protrudes more than it really does, and I did that by design. It's a larger LED light bulb, 75 watt. It's probably about 1.5 inches larger than traditional regular light bulb, and I did that so it would stick out and give me a little bit more light. Now let's take a look at if we corrected the run out here. Just want to take a second and show you what I did here. I had an old piece of quality hardware. This is not cheap junk. It's very old. God knows how long I had it, but it has a nice handle on it. So what I did is I actually made like kind of a speed nut. So if I want to tighten this up and move it around, you could just basically do it all by hand with no tools. And one's usually enough. It kind of holds it in place. You could use the other hand to hold it while you operate the drill press. But I thought that was a neat little fix. And I did buy this cheap little drill press from Harbor Freight. I think it was like $12 with the 20% off. I'm just kicking myself. I walked away from tons of these over the years that I could have cleaned up. I'll come across one that's old and made in the USA. So back to that run. All right. I taped the handle because it was rattling and I didn't want it to be the distraction. To drill pretty nice. So I just had a thought. If I took a measurement on here on the drill bit, 9.6, 9.7 really is what I'm getting on this. I was just thinking if I took that measurement and then took a measurement here, I might be able to see, kind of get a rough idea what the run out is. So 9.7 and here I'm 10.2. So that would put us at 5/1000ths of our run out. I don't know if there's any science to that. I just thought that up right now. We'll see if the dial indicator validates that. But I do want to do one more visual test real quick. So just another quick visual test. What I'm thinking is I'll bring this down with a smaller drill bit inside a larger hole and see if we can notice any sort of wobble within that hole. Let's take a look and see what happens. Seems okay. It's not hitting any of the wood around it. I purposely put it a little closer to the other side of the hole, so I think for wood it would definitely do the trick. It's much better than it was when I got it. Let's see the next test. Alright, I put it on several spots. I'll show you the last one here, but I'm pretty much getting the same readout everywhere. I put it up a little higher, I put it in the middle, and now I just put it down towards the lowest part of it I can get, and I'm spinning it from the top. And basically, if you can see, I had it set on 0, and it's going about 3/1000ths one way, yeah, about 2 that way, and about 3 there. So it's about 5/1000ths off. I've got that reading in a couple of spots, so I feel pretty confident about that being the run out. You guys tell me, is that like what this was out of the factory? Was it more precise than that out of the factory? Is 5/1000ths suitable? I'm assuming for wood it is, maybe not for precision type drilling at firearms and stuff like that, but that's not what I plan on using it for. It's going to be kind of a makeshift lathe and just a drill. I'm sure the 5/1000ths is a lot steadier than I could have did by hand with my regular DeWalt drill. I tried to fix the run out the best I could during this process, and that's pretty much what I've been getting the whole time is 5/1000ths. I reset the chuck
2 or 3 times. Knocked it off, clean it, reset it, knocked it off, clean it, reset it. I got the same result. I thought that changing the bearings would really help. The only bearing I did not change is that pulley bearing. So if you think that if that might be the one thing that maybe could make it a little more precise, then I would change it. Let me know, but I don't think so. It just seemed like it was really tight and smooth. So let's take one last look at this in all its glory, and let's wrap it up. All right, guys, there it is. It is finally finished. Thank you so much for watching. Here's a couple of products I just wanted to show you that I used. I know I told you I painted most of it carbon mist. The motor a black, hammered black, and I used a lot of this acrylic enamel, especially on the base. I put like probably 4 or 5 coats, so it just took a long time, the whole process with painting and acrylic. I mean, you know, everything was painted with 2 to 3 coats, and then I put 2 to 3 coats of all the acrylic on it, so it has a nice hard finish. Same thing on all the parts in the motors. How nice it is the little rubber caps on here. Those are just vacuum caps. Had some and put them on there. Just adds a lot of nice touch. And then just everything is shined up, waxed. All those brackets been cleaned. And the way I cleaned a lot of that is just on my bench grinder. That is a fiber wheel that goes on the bench grinder, and it has a little bit of give. So if you want to put like a pair of pliers with a screw end on it, you could just clean up and polish all of these screw ends so they come out like new. All of this stuff was hit at some point with the fiber wheel, and that's what really made all of this look like new. It's just a lot of work. All the bolts, all of this, you know, takes all the patina off, and it makes it look really new. Even the ones that got painted were all cleaned down with that fiber wheel. There's the fiber wheel I was telling you about that goes on the angle grinder. That is the second one. The first one I completely wore out. This is what a new one looks like. They're not, I think it was $12 for 5 of them. And that's really what it looks like, guys. So thanks for hanging in there with me. This project took a lot longer than I would have liked it to go. But please like and subscribe. I've got a lot more videos, some tool hauls. I don't know about any other restorations, but anything you could share about just drill presses in general, not just necessarily this model, as this is my first one. So any suggestions is always much appreciated. Look at that. Thanks, guys, for watching, and like and subscribe.